So within this video we're going to be discussing about the social factors within sport and how it affects talent identification. So firstly, does a social background equal talent or success? Well, here's an image of a father and son, with the father holding the cup that his son has recently won. So, in terms of this, we're looking at is the father being too pushy, and does the role of family have a negative effect sometimes on talent or player development? Saying this, not all family impact is negative, and the role of the family can also play a positive impact in terms of helping out the athlete to become successful. The next image shows two brothers, Gary and Phil Neville. So we're thinking about the role of the sibling within this. So the social background they come from, so they would have been playing against each other when they were young and they were kids, playing with the father. It would have brought out a competitive nature between them both. They would have pushed each other just as hard in terms of wanting to be successful and how they did that. Another factor which may have a social influence on talent identification would be the environment people come from. So is there opportunity to take part in sport, and if so, is there opportunity to be brought and identified into talented youth systems? The next factor within the social influence would be the difference between private schools and general schools. In terms of private schools, you would say compared to public schools, they have more opportunity to take part in Olympic sports due to the money implication that has an effect. You would also say that private schools have a better exposure to facilities, which therefore could have an implication on developing athletes. On the other hand, you would say public schools have an opportunity to take part in mainstream sports, which is free of charge in terms of schools. You would say that public schools are also involved in a relaxed environment compared to private schools, because parents are paying for private tuition within private schools and parents do not pay for that in public schools. The emphasis on studying may be extremely high within private schools, which may affect people or athletes socialising with friends compared to public schools where children or athletes may have the freedom to do so. Again, moving on to the general and private schools, but this time showing some statistics. So the last, 1 in 5 of British heavyweight champions of boxing are privately educated, as well as 7 out of 15 from the last England One Day International versus New Zealand. 2 out of 21 of the England football squad versus Brazil. 12 out of 33 of the last English rugby squad. 1 out of 12 cycling, and 5 out of 10 rowing. So this shows the mix between private and general schools in terms of people being identified. These statistics, looking at it from my perspective, you would not say that there is a sway towards one or another when evening out the different sports. In terms of some sports, so the England cricket squad, having 7 of the 15 squad attend private schools, where only 2 of the English football squad, you would say, when comparing the two sports, you would say that cricket is more of a top class sport, so compared to football, which is more of a mainstream sport, which may reflect the impact of identification. Moving on from that, so the family demands within sport. So first of all, the image shows of a parent dropping their child off at sport. So the time it actually takes for them to drive their children to and from sporting events may affect family plans, so things being dropped for their children. The second image shows a father supporting their child within sport. So this could be with paying for equipment, taking them to and from sessions, staying and watching, which may affect them having to take time off work, or a lack of payment because they have to take time off work. And finally, the final image represents a cause in family arguments. So maybe if the father and son wanted to attend a sporting event when the family had plans, this may cause problems, or forking out for the children's equipment or petrol to take them there, which may cause problems between the mother and father and result in family problems. And finally, so the environment, I touched on it earlier, but the chances of becoming an elite athlete. So first of all, comparing between a small town so in terms of the advantages of living in a big city where there is more clubs available, more people available to come and watch the athlete, compared to a small town where there may only be one club. So it may be harder for an athlete to be identified by youth academies. Another factor would be, if you are living in a big city, there is going to be more people competing for the same position in terms of the same sport. So there will be more talented footballers because of the population levels, compared to a small town where there may only be a handful of athletes competing in a certain sport. Therefore, there are plenty of pros and cons to living in both, and the identification process is extremely difficult to identify which is more beneficial to where you live within an environment.